Tonight on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we have Fantasy Training Camp Extreme Cuts. How are they going to affect your teams? The news on J.K. Dobbins, Cam Newton, and lightning round DFS. What else is it? It's time for Garbage Time. Welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football tonight. It's just me and Ryan. We have JJ doing something random, skipping out on us, and Ron decided to take the week off, I think. How you doing tonight, Ryan?
Good. How you doing? Glad to be back. Had to take a little bit of a break there because Mother Nature decided to install an in-ground pool in my house.
As we've been telling everyone on the show. Did you get the kayak ready for your basement at least?
Yeah, I'm happy, didn't have to go anywhere to do it. But yeah, I'm just glad to be back. Got my life sorted out a little bit here, so I'm ready to jump back into podcasting.
Yeah, as stated, guys, tonight on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we're going over the latest training camp cuts that are going to affect fantasy football. My heartbreaking news on J.K. Dobbins, Ryan's heartbreaking news on Cam Newton, and we're going to get into some DFS lineups. How do you feel about that, Ryan?
Pretty good. So yeah, we'll jump into the first thing here. We got the bombshell today of Cam Newton being released from the New England Patriots.
Whoa. What are you doing? Before we do that, we have voicemails we got to do. You can't just jump right in the news, and you got to let me do the segments too, right? What are you doing, sir? But I can interrupt you with this. Right. Is it hate mail or is it good? Let's find out. The Angry Christian segment is here.
Hey guys, it's your favorite Hackman fan here. Ron, you know how I know that you are the equivalent of a toilet when it comes to fantasy football hosts? It's because I have to bring up Wentz before you even think about drafting him to your loser lineup. A true fantasy football host does his homework ahead of time before he airs, not during the show.
Like Wentz getting COVID there, sir. Christian?
JJ, I hope you've been feeding the hamster you have running on the wheel to power your Wi-Fi. At this point, the fans would win more money by guessing whether or not you make it to the show than by taking advice from you. Ryan, I wanted to ask you about your kayak adventures in your house. But then I saw the New England Patriots release Cam Newton this morning for being Cam Newton. And I figured your life really sucks right about now. I'm going to leave you alone.
Is that all he had for us? I thought he was going to have a question.
A slow day at the office.
I guess so. So he did mention Carson Wentz there, so we can elaborate a little bit on that. Christian, we don't know if you actually did your homework there too, because he's now on the COVID list, and his team is getting decimated by injuries. They're making training camp cuts to a lot of their wide receivers. I don't know what kind of a season Wentz going to have there. They're really going to have to rely on their running game. Of it. So I don't know, Christian. That might not be your best call. You might have to come at me next week. Yeah, but with that, Ryan, I think we can get into the news, right?
Absolutely. Let's jump right into it.
News updates.
All right, Ryan. So how are you feeling about Gus Edwards getting a prominent role in the Ravens offense there with the J.K. Dobbins injury coming up?
Well, I'm just happy I wasn't the unlucky individual in our league that had him as a keeper this season.
No, that would be me.
Yeah, and based on reports too, it seems like the Ravens are willing to roll with him. They have no interest in bringing back bringing Todd Gurley, who visited in June, I believe.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of potential there. I mean, the carries are there. I think Gus Edwards might be a for those that drafted already, he might, if for some reason you drafted him, he might be a steal that could potentially be a top 20 running back.
That's interesting that you note that, because that's obviously the topic of tonight in our title. What do you think this really does to Tyson Williams' value and Justice Hill on the team?
So I really like Tyson Williams' value. It seems like he's actually going to beat out Hill for that number 3 spot on the depth chart prior to the injury to Dobbins. So I think Williams is going to be the number 2 guy.
Yeah, that was interesting, because in our league of record, I saw that you picked up Justice Hill initially, and then someone swooped in and got Williams when that report initially came out. I think initially they believed in Justice Hill, which was according to the reports. He's very talented, but he just doesn't seem to fit their scheme, and they seem to be falling out of favor for him. Do you think there's any chance that they bring in someone like a Todd Gurley potentially?
Well, yeah. So I think Hill went into this offseason as being he had secured the RB3 spot, but then Hill went in basically as the RB3, but then Williams just has been doing so well this offseason that he kind of took it. So I kind of regretted snagging that Hill pick because that backfired. But
yeah, that kind of seemed like a little bit of a waste. But an interesting move and a good move, I think, for keepers is that you took on Dobbins as a potential keeper that you could actually use next season should your team end up staying healthy. The problem with it is we only have one injury spot in our league, and COVID's running rampant. So I don't know if you'll be able to keep him for the entire season. But if you did, that's going to be a potentially good keeper, regardless of the ACL injury. You can bring him in on the cheap.
Yeah, I'm going to try like hell to keep him. Utilize the waiver wire when necessary, because, yeah, like you said, if I can go into next season with having him as a waiver pickup that currently is worth $0 in our keeper league, I would have a solid RB for pretty cheap. So trying to plan long term there. So let's hope it works out.
So let me ask you another thing too. The coaching staff of the Baltimore Ravens came out right after this injury too, and claimed that it was always a plan to play Dobbins in that game, and that there was absolutely no reason he should have been in that. Do you believe he should have been playing in that third preseason game? Because as soon as I saw that, I was instantly pissed off. I don't understand. Just because you want to go 20-0 in the preseason, which amounts to nothing in the long term, teams like Cleveland and the Lions in the past have gone completely undefeated in the preseason and then gone winless in the regular season. So ultimately, what does that bring up? Because you want to play Dobbins in the third preseason game? You shouldn't be playing any of your starters in the third preseason game. That is absolutely stupid. Now it's going to ruin it not just for your team. It's also going to ruin it for fantasy owners now too, which I understand that they may not care about that, but it's still going to hurt your chances at the Super Bowl this year. So what the hell were they thinking? I've
always thought that's the dumbest stat when I saw them putting that out at the start of the preseason, like, oh, the Ravens have won this many preseason games in a row. It doesn't matter. No one cares. I've always thought that the preseason should be a time to get a look at your young guys, see who could potentially bump into a starter spot. Mm-hmm. If you have guys that you know is a guaranteed starter, that you know is your guy, why the heck are you playing him that late into the preseason? You know he's the starter. You know that. So
you should have been playing Justice Hill.
Yeah, it's not like there was a competition for who was going to be the number one running back on that team.
And the only thing it did was bring heartbreak to all fantasy football owners who drafted him early because we decided not to do it in September because we didn't have the time. Damn it.
Well, and this is right after you saw Etienne go down with an injury. So as a coach, I would see that and think, oh, damn, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to rest my guys.
Gurley during training camp. So do you see a trend of young running backs going down? Let's try to avoid this every year.
Yeah, which for the record, I don't think the Jags playing Etienne was a bad idea because he's a rookie. They had to get a look at him. Mm-hmm. But when the Ravens saw that happen, you would think that they would say, okay, we're resting our guy. We're not going to take that risk, especially with the number of injuries that even occurred last year following no off-season camps and COVID and all that jazz. So, a poor decision by the Ravens, I think, playing him. Some people might disagree. I don't know. I don't care. But, it's going to suck for everybody except Gus Edwards.
Right. All right, Ryan. So let's get on to some a little bit of older news before we get into the training camp stuff and the major shit that happened today, which I think you're going to be eking to get into. What do you feel about Ryan Fitzpatrick being named finally the starter for the Washington football team?
I'm not surprised. I mean, I loved watching what's his name, Heineke.
Yeah.
Loved watching him play. Super fun guy to watch play. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, he probably won't go out and win you a Super Bowl, but he's gonna go out and sling it. And he's gonna be a good veteran for the guys behind him to learn from. I think it made sense to have him at least be the starter for the start of the season. So I wasn't super surprised, but I do think too that it makes me more confident for the receivers on that team. If Fitzpatrick's there with an unknown kind of guy, the receivers might not have as much production.
I had a bold take earlier in the offseason where I think Ryan Fitzpatrick could end up in the top 12 of fantasy QBs this year and actually be that borderline QB1 starter. And I really believe he's going to do that. He's got the weapons in this offense. I think he's going to produce, and he's got the right coach to do it. Good running game, good wide receivers, and he's right on that cusp of doing it. He could be that late round flyer that you're going to get a lot of value should you miss out on the early guys, or a great number 2 QB in a super flex league.
Absolutely, and I think that's worth noting just for these guys going into their drafts is early on you're going to see the high end quarterbacks taken early. You know, you're going to see Mahomes, Jackson, Murray, Dak. They're all going to come off early. I just wouldn't get nervous because I would take the value at the running back and wide receiver positions first.
Yep.
Because on the back end you're going to have guys like Tannehill, Brady, Fitzpatrick, Stafford sitting there that you can snag towards the end, and the point difference between those quarterbacks versus at some of the other positions, I just think you get more value waiting a little bit.
On a smaller note, too, Minshew was traded for a 6th-round pick. Absolutely no fantasy value unless the starter goes down and they replace him. So, on top of that, I think we also need to discuss the 49ers backfield, too, something we saw in preseason a little bit last week, and something interesting is this backfield between Sermon and Raheem Mostert seems to be split. It looks like it's going to be a 50-50 split. Sermon's coming off a little bit of an injury, so Mostert might initially be the better runner. But historically, Mostert has not stayed healthy for an entire season, so I don't think that'll end up working out well for owners that draft Mostert earlier than his rookie counterpart there.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you shouldn't be drafting Mostert as your RB1 for sure. You're not going to get the value out of him that you're hoping for if you take him that early.
No, I don't believe he's ever played in any more than 9 games.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be banking on him being the guy. And I think more and more you're getting the teams that are going to do this running back by committee approach just to keep their guys healthy. But Sermon's a talented kid. I mean, he's good, man. And if he gets a hot, if you know, let's say Mostert misses a week or 2 weeks, if Sermon comes out and kills it, they're gonna run with him.
Yeah, literally. I think he's really good. Yeah, no shit, dude. So really, I think he's got the ability to be a flex running back right now. And I don't think you're going to have an issue pushing him into that running back 2 spot later into the season. I think he could have league winning upside and good value for you, even as a rookie. And I think he's going to be a decent keeper later. Something else we can talk about here now too is Trey Lance is rumored to have an injury in his hand, and his head coach is refusing to tell the reporters which fingers actually hurt. So I don't know if that's really going to affect him going into the season. They said he might need a week off. So we'll have some interesting questions about that. What do you think about that, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm not taking Trey Lance. I don't know. I'm not crazy about him in general, just going to that team and the quarterback situation. They kind of seem like they don't have it fully figured out yet. So, I mean, I'm staying away from him pretty much in all areas.
Yeah, well, I think you're incredibly wrong about that, and I think he's got some also league-winning upside in the second half. If you punt on QBs, which a lot of people are going to be doing this year because there's a limited pool of running backs that you can pick up that are going to be running back 1s or 2s for you. So I think it might be a very good strategy to take a late-round flyer on him. you may disagree with that, but I think you were completely wrong about that. So,
All right, so when we're talking late round flyers, then let's say you get in the late rounds, you have like Lance, Fitzpatrick, Stafford, and I don't know, whoever you want for the fourth one hanging out. Who do you take?
I can tell you right now, I would draft Lance because I would be taking a QB before then, probably in the 7th or 8th round. And I can let him marinate on the bench. And like I said, he's got the running ability that none of those fuckers do.
So you're
absolutely winning
QBs
upset
in this situation?
I would. If I'm going to be looking to take Lance, which I did actually in our league of record, yeah, I absolutely would be looking to do that. So let's get into the news of the day, Ryan, which I'm going to absolutely give you the floor for. So what happened earlier? I sent you a little bit of a text message, and it was probably a bit of a shocker for you when you saw it.
I was shocked to see the Patriots release Cam Newton. As everyone knows, signed him to a $14 million contract at the start of the offseason. A lot of it was incentive based, but $14 million nonetheless. So to see him released was surprising, but then also I'm sure everybody saw earlier in the week, there was some frustration in the Patriots camp with Cam Newton missing out on the 5 days due to COVID issues, not vaccinated, etc. So he kind of opened the door to Matt Jones to come in and show what he's got with playing with the starters. So I think some of that's on Cam for allowing that to happen, but I'm also seeing more and more too that coaches are coming out and saying they are keeping in mind players' vaccination status when it comes to doing these cuts. And Bill Belichick once famously said, dependability is more important than ability. He does not want to be in a situation, week 5, week 6, whenever, where Cam Newton, due to being unvaccinated, is COVID restricted, and the Patriots are scrambling to get their QB in position. Belichick doesn't want that. He wants to know who he's having from week to week as much as he can in the NFL. So I think that played a large factor, but Matt Jones also played really well in the offseason. I mean, he did well.
That take is interesting as hell because I was pointing out to you guys late last week that there was some reports coming out of New England from some reputable reporters that Mac Jones could potentially end up with that job, but that really didn't come to fruition until today. I think we were all surprised. But should Cam Newton come down with COVID, which it seems like anyone with a vaccine can now, he would probably be a close connection and be on 5 days of isolation, which would completely screw up that team's plan for the year. So you're right. Maybe he is vaccinated or stuff. I saw this hilarious meme earlier too of, I believe it was an old State Farm commercial where it shows Cam Newton saying to a kid, "You can be Superman someday." And oddly enough, that kid kind of looks like Mac. Yeah, that kid oddly looks like Mac Jones. So that came to fruition. The future was told, and now Mac Jones is the starting quarterback of the Patriots. Ryan, what do you think that does?
Currently the only quarterback on the Patriots, as we released Brian Hoyer and placed Jarrett Stidham on reserved list. So currently he's the only QB on our depth chart. I think we bring Hoyer back. I think this is just playing games with money and things like that currently.
Oh, absolutely, because nobody else would be able to sign him. It's an extra roster spot you guys can play with.
Exactly. Fantasy implications. I think, honestly, Matt Jones being the starter helps literally everybody on the Patriots on a fantasy standpoint.
Except Cam Newton.
Except Cam Newton. I think the biggest beneficiary, and I think a lot of people will agree, is Damian Harris. Last year, Damian Harris tied with Cam Newton for carries with 137. Also throw in the fact that Sony Michel was traded. That leaves like 280 something carries that need to be distributed out. Obviously, Stevenson and Taylor are going to take some of those, but I think a majority of the work's going to go to Harris. And another interesting stat I read was so Cam Newton accounted for 75% of New England's carries inside the 5-yard line last year. 75%. So I think there's going to be a ton of goal line work available. Whether Harris gets all of that or gets most of it is waiting to be seen. But there is going to be a ton of goal line work available for the running backs there with Cam Newton gone.
Ryan, is that going to elevate him to someone above like a James Robinson?
I don't think it's going to put him above James Robinson with the ETN injury. I think James Robinson's stock has skyrocketed because of that. But I think this puts Harris in a, if you're in a standard league, I think he's a solid RB2.
Mm-hmm.
In a flex league, I'd put him as a solid bench spot for a bye week or even a flex option.
Let me hedge your bets there too. I think this move drastically increases James White's prospects too. Not for fantasy football,
100%.
but as a fantasy football sabotage in the red zone. You brought up the fact there's going to be a lot of touches in that red zone. I kind of got a feeling that James White is going to be the one getting them. I'm not sure how Stevenson fits into this offense. Probably the change of pace back as a potential danger to take the job later on in the season. But I think James White is going to revert to his third down role, and he catches out of the backfield. That's what they brought him here for, and that's what Mac
100%.
Jones is going to do with him.
And I would argue that I think in PPR leagues, you could look at James White as being a possible weekly starter in your flex spots or in your RB2 spots. I mean, Cam Newton made James White basically a non-factor last year with his inability to get him the ball in those third down conversions.
I would argue that. I don't
see-
even think he's going to be a flex. I don't even think he's going to be worth much of a flex play, except in deeper leagues. I'm
We
glad
can
you
see,
think that.
but I think it's possible. Next, another obvious implication is I think it helps out all the receivers.
Mhm.
I think a lot of them are just going to be waiver wire fodder, people that you snag from week to week if necessary, except for Jacoby Myers. I think Myers working in the slot, he has the potential to be the go-to guy for Matt Jones. So I would say Jacoby Myers, I would feel okay having him as a wide receiver 4 on my team, potentially throw in the flex spot if Jones ends up throwing him the ball a lot.
Yeah, the really two big targets here, the ones you'd have to consider, like you said, are Myers and Nelson Aguilar. Early on in the offseason, people were predicting that Nelson Aguilar would be the big target play here, even for Cam Newton while he was there. Jacoby Myers has made it very clear he's the number one wide receiver here. And outside of getting targets to these tight ends, which have been injured all offseason, he's a solid play here and something that you can bring in late in your drafts and play as a wide receiver 3 or in a flex spot with potential wide receiver 2 upside. He's a number one target there, and Mac Jones is going to look to target him.
Yep, and I would argue, since you mentioned the tight ends, my bold take will be, I think Jonnu Smith is a possible top 10 tight end candidate.
Oh shit!
Yep, I think you can see Jonnu Smith sneak into the top 10 with Matt Jones being their starter, and even Hunter Henry. I think he could still be a tight end 1 if you're in a deep league.
So you're
I could
saying
see
like
Hunter
10 and 12 then, huh?
Yeah, I could see it happening. So I think with Cam Newton gone, I like Jonnu Smith at tight end with the possibility of being a top 10.
It's nice that you think you're going to have Brady Jr. here throwing to the tight ends like Aaron Hernandez and Gronk back in the day.
As soon as that photo came out of Matt Jones shirtless, you compare that to that draft day photo of Tom Brady, I knew he was going to be the QB1. I mean, it's meant to be.
Bill's just looking back, and the senile side's just coming out, and he just sees Tom Brady there. He's like, "Let's run it back, kid. We got this."
Absolutely.
All right,
So
now
that's
good.
Go ahead. Nope, go.
Are we done with the Patriots?
Yeah, so I was going to bring up another news that I heard.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tariq Cohen, I got an alert that he is going to be out the first 5 games.
You're damn right he is.
So obviously, I mean, I was pretty big on Montgomery anyway. Not as big as JJ, but I was pretty big on him. But this makes his fantasy value super high, especially those first 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So an interesting thought on that too is Montgomery's current ADP is going in the 3rd round. JJ has been pushing that fire up to the 2nd round, and he loves to take him in every single effing mock draft and every single draft we do with him. He's getting the majority of the workload. He's healthy this season, which we haven't seen in seasons past. He's got that ability to push the envelope with you, and he's going to push the needle for many people, I think, this offseason. So I absolutely love that too. And a little bit of more news too. I think we can also talk about how Irv Smith is going to be disappointing for the Vikings this year now that he is seen to have an injury, and they seem to have an answer now to that injury. It was believed that Irv Smith could potentially miss up to 6 months if he has to get surgery. And now they've traded for Chris Herndon, which is obviously a unicorn sighting in Minnesota. I don't really think it's going to do anything much for them. And let me just say this. Joe Douglas is a fucking thief. He got a 4th round and a 6th round pick for him next year, which I thought they were going to be lucky to get a 6th round pick for him this year. So absolutely great job by the GM doing that. But anyway, what were you saying?
You guys sent over 6th round and Herndon and got a 5th. Got a 4th.
Oh, okay. Still take it.
And I remember when Herndon first came on scene, he was supposed to be really good, but just wasn't able to stay healthy, wasn't producing. So it'll be interesting what he does over in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people too thought Irv Smith may be kind of a sleeper this season, but that's obviously over.
Sure as shit ain't now.
Yeah. So I don't want any part of Chris Herndon, but it's definitely an interesting development.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant in the tight end position. Do not take him as a late flyer. Keep him on the waiver wire. If he produces there, awesome. If not, which is probably the likely venue because there's a lot of receivers there. And let me mention another tight end that they don't hate there too. I don't think he's going to be very fantasy relevant. They took him as a flyer. He is a unicorn, but he's a unicorn you never effing see because he just doesn't produce. Look for him to do nothing for fantasy football this season. And news that's under the radar.
Then my last. What's up? I was just going to bring up the news that came out today or yesterday. Michael Thomas is going to be out for the first 6 weeks, possibly out for 5 games. So obviously this increases the fantasy value of some other receivers. I especially like Callaway now with Michael Thomas out. What do you think?
Marquez Callaway is an absolutely phenomenal late round flyer for you guys out there. I'm going to actually mention him in our DFS lineups at the end of the show. He's a very cheap option. He's their clear number 1. And you saw it during the preseason, which I understand it's just preseason, but who the hell else do they have in the wide receiving core right now? Jameis Winston took the job, so the offense is going to be more traditional. And he has shown that he wants to throw to Marcus Callaway, who is obviously the most talented wide receiver they have there because Michael Thomas isn't there. He's got the opportunity. He's worth your late round flyer. Just take the chance on him. Absolutely.
And like you said, I think he has the potential to be a guy that you can start every week. And if you get a guy like that you can take in the late rounds, it's a steal.
All right, Ryan, our last little bit of camp news I kind of think went under the radar too, except for JJ, who's been talking about it for a few weeks here. Left tackle David Bakhtiari is out for the Packers until week 7. And they also lost Corey Linsley this season to the San Diego Chargers, who is now a Pro Bowl center there. What is this going to do to Aaron Rodgers in that offense?
I think it concerns me more for their rushing game. In a couple mock drafts I've done, you still see those guys being taken like round 1, round 2.
Aaron Jones. I'm still big on him.
Yeah. I don't love it. I really don't. I think Aaron Rodgers is still going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. I don't think he's going to have the MVP season he had last year, like I mentioned in my rankings. But it's definitely going to be a different offense this year. And I don't know if I love Aaron Jones. I think it hurts Aaron Jones more than it hurts Aaron Rodgers.
Let me make this clear, and I think this is being understated. If they were worried about Corey Linsley not having a replacement there, they would have kept him, especially if they wanted to keep Aaron Rodgers happy. I understand Bakhtiari is out, but I think they have contingency plans there. I still believe in Aaron Jones in this running game too. I think the offense will be fine. I think they will adjust, and they're going to be a fantastic team. So I'm still very comfortable taking him in that 5 to 7 range, which I know JJ is going to absolutely be fuming listening to this. I still think he's going to be better than someone such as the Colts running back over there, which we have a little bit of a bet on.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, I mean, where are you ranking Aaron Jones, even with these injuries on the offensive line?
Probably with 7 because I like the potential of him actually getting that passing work. There is a host of guys that I got above him. Obviously, with Dobbins out, that's going to move him up too, which I was very high on Dobbins. And, of course, Baltimore had to fucking play him. Thanks for that. So, yeah, another great running back goes down and another guy moves up in the rankings. So, congratulations.
And it's definitely an interesting point you brought up at the start of the show, especially for people in keeper leagues. Running backs are going to be tough to come by in these drafts. You know, those top guys.
Yeah.
It's gonna be slim pickings there. So you're gonna have to get the top guys early, I think.
And the same lesson we learn every single year, and all fantasy owners should learn: do your drafts in September after training camp,
Yes.
which I think we'll be looking to do next year because I am sick of these damn injuries. I want to see my team go out there at least week 1 before they go down in week 1, not have to worry about this shit and then have to shuffle. I think I was able to shuffle off that injury pretty well. So let me throw a little bit of a flyer out there for people who are trying to recover from the J.K. Dobbins injury. Take a look at Ty Johnson. I really think he's going to be the number 1 running back for the New York Jets. He is shown to be there. I also picked up Tevin Coleman to hedge my bets on that, though, too, who might be good for 3 or 4 weeks. I don't think their rookie's going to be starting there, and Ty Johnson looks like the best runner there. So maybe hedge your bets with that if you don't have any alternatives.
Absolutely. Not bad take at all.
All right, Ryan, do you have any other thoughts before we get on to our next segment?
No, I think we covered it. I think we're pretty good. We're ready to. What's up nuts? DFS?
Oh no, we're not a DFS. This is a little bit of a mystery segment. I didn't even know that you do not even know that we're getting into. So let's drop that.
I'm excited.
Let the drama begin because I've got some rookie quarterback questions for you, sir.
Oh boy!
In
All
fantasy
right,
relevance, now that we have so many of them starting this offseason. So I figured you'd be happy to talk about Mac Jones a little bit. And we're going to a game in week 2 where Zach Wilson and Mac Jones are going to be playing each other, minus an injury in week 1, which, knock on wood, neither one of us get. So, Ryan, for rookie quarterback predictions, who's going to have more of a fantasy relevant season this year, Mac Jones or Zach Wilson?
Ooh. I think from a fantasy standpoint, not who's going to win more games, fantasy standpoint, I could see how Zach Wilson could have more fantasy relevance. I don't think the Jets defense is as good as the Patriots defense. I think the Patriots have a little bit better of a run game. And
I think we'll have a debate for that, but okay.
And so and Bill I think is going to be more balanced with Mac Jones. So I think Zach Wilson will finish a little bit ahead as far as fantasy points goes.
All right. So I left an open invitation to our host, Ron Seymour, that I would trade Mac Jones for Zach Wilson. And let me explain why. I think you got about a coin flip here. 1, the New England offense is a machine that's been around now for 20 fucking years. And Mac Jones is tempered for it. There's a great offensive line there. But Zach Wilson has shown exceptional talent. The ability to position himself on the field, his pocket presence, his awareness, reading off receivers. He's 5 deep at the position, and he's got an underrated offensive line and a scheme that's going to allow them to run the ball. While I think New England's running game is potentially stronger per se, I think the scheme might actually allow the Jets to have a more efficient running game than the Patriots. I do think you're going to win more games because your defense is exceptionally a lot better. But I think Zach Wilson is going to be a lot more fantasy relevant for the reason that our defense is not going to stop a nosebleed this year. That secondary is young and needs to marinate.
Exactly.
So I think Zach Wilson's going to be more fantasy relevant. Not to say Mac Jones might not be in the second half of the season, but they're going to rely on that running game, which is going to make those running backs very fantasy relevant early in the season.
I think the thing that surprised me the most this preseason, though, is I didn't get to see a ton from Mac Wilson. I mean,
Mac Wilson?
I mean,
all of a sudden you're fusing those two together, huh?
Yeah, Zach Wilson. I mean, I think he had 20 attempts this preseason, threw for 190 yards. Definitely got to see a lot more from Matt Jones, mainly because of Newton being out. But yeah, I think the big thing is going to be the fact that your defense is so bad.
Thanks.
Zach Wilson's going to have to get out. You guys are going to be behind in games, and you're going to have to get out there and throw the ball.
But let me say this, not because of the front seven, it'll be because of the secondary. So don't give us too much shit. The front seven is fine. Our linebackers are a little thin and our secondary is young. So I don't want to hear that bullshit from you, but I'm happy we're playing a rookie quarterback in week 2. So we have a little bit of a chance. Anyway, on to the next rookie quarterback fantasy prediction. Do you believe Trevor Lawrence is going to finish in the top 15 of quarterbacks for week 1?
Ooh, for week 1. Who's he play week 1?
I'm not giving you that information. If you'd like that information, look it up now.
I'm going to. Trevor Lawrence looked good, man. Now you're making me look up who they're playing.
I'll give you a hint. It's a divisional opponent.
Against the Texans?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. I think so. He looked really good this preseason. He's got James Robinson, who he can throw to a lot.
Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a stud, man. So, yeah, I'll say yes.
Got Chenault there. He's got a few weapons he can throw to, so it's not completely bare cupboards there. I completely agree with you. I think he'll be right on that cusp of 15. So QB number 2, I wouldn't start him, but, let him sit on the roster a little bit. Take someone a little bit earlier, a veteran. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick, might I say. Not the worst idea in the world.
I do like Chenault as far as late round flyers, too. I have him on at least one of my fantasy teams. I think he could be the wide receiver 1 there.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. On to our next question, then, if that's all you've got for Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Do you think Trey Lance is going to start over Jimmy Garoppolo week 1, even with the mysterious hand injury?
Oof. I think Jimmy G starts week 1.
Okay, do you think they're going to have packages for Trey Lance in week 1?
No.
No. So he's just going to sit on the bench, be absolutely useless week 1. Fuck him. Just leave him there.
Yep. I think it's all Jimmy G.
I think you were dead wrong with this, and I think this is another misdirection because you don't need to do shit before the season starts with injuries. Notice they're being very unalluding to it. There's still a week and a half before the season starts, and that game is on Sunday. If that hand magically heals, I think you're going to see Trey Lance starting week 1. I think they love what they're going to see there. I don't think they're going to want any drama. I really believe he's going to start in week 1. And then he's not going to give the job back, and he's going to be very fantasy relevant this year. Call that my bold take, but he's going to be fantastic this year with that running ability and the Kyle Shanahan offense. And on to our last little bit of questioning. Is the game that Justin Fields will start for the Bears be against the Lions in week 3?
Oh, it's hard because Nagy is so freaking
steadfast that Andy Dalton's going to play for them. That locker room seems pissed off about it too.
Yeah, and I just think I don't know if they're scared to get Justin Fields back there and have him just get sacked 80 times in a season and don't want to see that happen.
Wouldn't you be more scared of getting fired though?
I don't think so. I mean, you would think, but they haven't fired him yet. But by week 3 against the Lions. Who are their first 2 games against?
Well, the first one I believe is against the Rams. So Danny Dalton is the sacrificial lamb for that game. And I believe week 2 is the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken. Would you like to confirm for me? I'm afraid if I click off the screen, I'm going to mess up this record.
Bengals.
In Detroit?
The Lions are week 4.
Ooh, okay. So it's an extra week for him to sit there then.
I'm going to say I think Andy Dalton's still starting.
No fucking way.
That's
You're so
my
wrong
take.
about
I think
that.
Andy Dalton still starts.
Oh, JJ
I
would
don't know, man.
fucking
I think
lose his mind if he's not starting by then.
Listen, I can't underestimate Nagy's inability to make the right choice. And
So what, did
the
Adam
right choice
Gase
would be
just come over there and possess him and just decide he's going to decide to make every wrong move in the book? I don't think Nagy's that bad.
Yes. So I say week 4, when they're rolling in to face the Lions, you're going to have Andy Dalton there behind center.
Even at 0-3?
Even at 0-3, even with an incredibly upset Bears fan base and his job on the line, he's going to put it all on Andy Dalton and start in week 4.
Who will not be fantasy relevant if he's still starting week 4? If Justin Fields is starting before then or at that time, he's going to be fantasy relevant. Same as Trey Lance, he's got the running ability. This could be a great year for rookie quarterbacks should they all start early, which it's looking very likely that 3 or 4 of them will be. All right, now on to our last segment of the night, Ryan. Are you ready for some DFS lineups?
I'm always ready for DFS.
Let's do it. Wrong one. Let's click the correct one. Yeah, that actually looked like the correct one. So for tonight, we are also going to be doing too early DFS lineups. We have done 2 weeks of it so far, and we give this to you guys so you can evaluate your DraftKings lineups, which is a $50,000 salary, and adjust them as you see fit up until week 1. So with this, I'm going to give mine, and then Ryan can finish off with his. How does that sound?
Sounds good, man. Let's see what you got.
All right, so for this week's DFS lineup, I'm starting off with Kyler Murray because I think he's got a lot of running ability. He is the top fantasy QB the first half of the season last year, and he was looking to absolutely break out last year. He almost broke records if he would have stayed healthy. He obviously did not. So I think he's a good option at 7,600. Next, I have Chris Carson, who is only 5,700. Seattle said they want to run the ball a lot more, and they're going to make a point of that in week 1, I think. So I've got Chris Carson here in that spot. And because Kyler Murray was a little bit more expensive too, I've got to take a chance on stuff. So I'm doing it with my boy Trey Sermon at 4,500 next. He's a rookie, but they're going up against Detroit's defense, which I think they're going to be able to beat the hell out of. I think there could be a lot of ability for both those running backs back there. So Trey Sermon at 4,500 to keep this a little bit cheaper on the end and stay in budget. Next, I'm going a little bit more expensive with the number 1 wide receiver that you should play every week in your DFS if it's possible, but it won't be. Devontae Adams at 8,300. Like I said, he's the best wide receiver in the league, and there's bar none, anyone even close to him. I don't care what your arguments are. He's going to finish this year as a wide receiver number 1. Next, I've got Russell Gage for the simple reason that he was targeted in Atlanta quite a bit in the second half of the season, and he was a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy football over the last 6 weeks, which a lot of people do not know. He's a decent flyer, and I'm coming around to him. I was a little bit off on him earlier in the season, but in fantasy football, we always reevaluate our opinions when we get data. He has shown through that data that he is reliable in that offense, and I think a good play for week 1. Next, I've got George Kittle coming off an injury. Bad defense here. Like I said, with the Lions, he just needs to stay healthy. So he is obviously the tight end 2 here in this spot for this week, especially going up against that defense. So George Kittle is 6,300. Next, Marquez Callaway as a number 1 wide receiver for the Saints. He's shown that he's going to be a boss in that offense, I think, while all their other targets are injured and hurt. So, and he is a great value at 3,400. So Marquez Callaway at 3,400. And Ryan, I'm going to go with the Patriots defense at 3,900. I mean, you're getting 5 starters back. They played absolutely phenomenal against Miami last year. So that's what we're going to do. Miami's defense, the Patriots defense at 3,900 and drop the mic.
And hopefully no Miami Miracle at the end of the game to completely
That was in the
ruin.
second half of the season. You guys won week 1, so look for that to happen again.
I
All right,
like it. I
Ryan,
like it.
what are your thoughts?
So yeah, I like it. I like some of the value picks that you made there. Trey Sermon for that cheap, I think is awesome. Devontae Adams, obviously a super expensive pick, but you know he's going to be in that top tier of wide receivers every single week. So if you can find value elsewhere and afford to play him, then heck yeah, definitely do it. Marquise Callaway, I love that pick at 3,400, especially with that injury to Michael Thomas. I actually have him in my lineup as well.
Mhm.
And Kyler Murray, you can't go wrong there. So no, good.
Oh, man, he's looking to
good
be a
picks.
top 3 quarterback, I think, of this year. I believe Justin Herbert is actually going to be the MVP. Shocking as it is the second you hear me. But I mean, for fantasy football, man, he's going to be the MVP, and that's why I spent so much damn money on our auction league on him. So
I like it.
yeah, so thanks for the feedback there. Now give me your lineup. What you got for us?
Yeah, so my lineup, I got, and you actually mentioned at the start of this, well, not the start, but during this episode, if you'd be a top 15 quarterback. So I went Trevor Lawrence at Houston. Not a good defense. He's at 6,200, so gives me some value there.
Mm-hmm.
I also stat him with James Robinson, officially the number 1 running back on that team with the recent injury to ETN.
Yeah.
Houston defense also bad against the run, not shockingly.
Mhm.
At 6,400, and then I went Alvin Kamara at 8,600. He's going to be a great starter any week. Next in wide receivers, I took Corey Davis at 4,900 on the Jets.
Love that pick.
Yep. I think he's going to be a solid weekly starter. And hopefully his value stays at how good it is. Next up, I got T. Higgins, who I'm pretty high on, actually, in general. Joe Burrow's coming back. You got T. Higgins there. Solid rookie campaign, even with Joe Burrow going down at 4,700. I really think that he could have an explosive season this year. As I mentioned, Marquise Callaway, also got him with that injury to Michael Thomas. He's the wide receiver 1. I don't think you're going to see him as low as 3,400 again for the rest of the season.
No, week 1, and that's probably it.
So jump on that now. In my tight end spot, preseason, I haven't seen much that makes me super confident, but I'm going Kyle Pitts again. I also did that for our last DFS at 4,400.
Might not be that cheap ever again.
Exactly. And those top tight end guys are expensive. I mean, Kelsey's at like 8,300, I think. What was Kittle at?
63. So it's still quite a
Okay.
drop off. Kelsey is by far the number 1 for DraftKings in week 1.
Yeah. So if you can get a guy that could potentially put up that top tight end number or top 3 tight end number at 4,400, jump all over it. In my flex spot, I realized I had some money sitting over, so I went Tyreek Hill against that Cleveland defense. Also
Double
not
tight
good.
end.
No, Tyreek Hill.
Oh, Tyreek Hill. I thought you said Travis Kelce. I'm like, how the hell did you afford that with that lineup? Fine,
Almost. I
Tyreek
almost
Hill.
could. I almost could. So Tyreek Hill at 8,200. That with that offense, those guys will always be studs. And then for my defense, I rounded it out with that powerful front 7 actually going up against the Chargers in Washington.
All right. So let me give some kudos and some critiques to your team. I absolutely hate
I don't
that
want
Washington.
any of your
I hate that Washington pick. I think Herbert is going to absolutely roast them. I understand they're a great defense, but it's going to be other weeks where you're going to want them. Tyreek Hill going up against Cleveland. There are some excellent corners there. I think you could get some better values there. Absolutely love the Alvin Kamara pick. He is the formula that's going to make that offense move. He's going to get the targets. They're going to run the ball out with him. And that Corey Davis pick there is fire. So obviously when you're playing DFS, you're not going to get to pick every player you absolutely love. Brian may love every pick he's got there. I don't love every pick he's got there, but he's got some pretty damn good ones there that might win him some money. So good
You
line
also
up,
convinced me to pivot. You convinced me to pivot. I switched my Washington defense to a cheaper option that I think will actually do better. I'm going to go with the Chargers against Washington.
There you go. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick will throw some picks in the first week, and he won't make the top 12 of fantasy quarterbacks this year.
Well, that's the thing with him. You never know. It's boom or bust. So hopefully this is a bust week. So those are my picks.
Ryan, I like that. All right, guys, we've reached the end of the show. We did it without the damn host. Who needs him anyway? Anyway, Garbage Time Fantasy Football, you can find us at www.garbagetimeff.com, where you can leave us some damn voicemails. You can insult us like Christian does every week. You know, he's just building us character. He's building our character. What else do you want from him? You can find us at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Ryan's got an MMA show called Garbage Time Presents the MMA Podcast. Give that shit a listen. He's actually won me some money in the past. Guys, like us, download us, and subscribe wherever you find us. And leave a damn comment because we'll answer that too. And if you're shy as shit, leave it on Instagram and we'll answer the questions there too. Brian, you got anything before we get out of here?
No, that's it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Heckling Fandom, good night. See you next time.